About 2 weeks ago, the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Defence and Internal Affairs, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs opened consultations on the need to safeguard Uganda's sovereignty from alleged foreign influence.
Our procedure is, after listening to stakeholders' views, we retreat as a committee to consider each and every view that has been mentioned by a stakeholder.
The move follows government concerns over what it describes as continued interference by some civil society organizations, NGOs, and other bodies in Uganda's policy development process, making it, according to proponents, difficult for the country to fully self-govern. Those backing the proposal point to unregulated foreign funding as a key driver of external interests shaping domestic policy.
We are saying for avoidance of doubt, this act applies to an agent of a foreigner who engages in any of the following activities through any means, including the use of digital platforms. For example, engages in political activities in Uganda to further the interest of a foreigner.
However, a section of civil society organizations has pushed back strongly, questioning the intent of the proposed legislation and calling for deeper scrutiny, or what they described as a third eye, warning that the bill in its current form should be rejected entirely.
Beyond politics, Honorable Chair and members, this bill is an economic suicide note. It creates a hostile environment for capital and labor, directly worsening the severe economic pain already biting Ugandans. That's why I'm calling it an economic suicide note.
So you wonder why the government itself thinks that it should be getting foreign funding and yet seeks to block or regulate heavily NGOs, political parties, and other organizations from being able to do the same.
When it comes to amendment of the Constitution, we have decisions here. It goes back, it takes us to Article 262B, which requires that any bill for an act of Parliament expressly or impliedly affecting sovereignty of the people and the supremacy of the Constitution must be approved by the people through a referendum.
Some stakeholders further cautioned that the bill could open the door to patronage and enslavement, raising concerns about possible targeting and restrictions on civic space.
We shall all be victims of this particular legislations, including the members of Parliament, if they legislate it in the current form. We have not seen any clause here that speaks about domestic threats to the sovereignty of the people of Uganda. And there are so many, they are widespread.
Adding to the debate, the governor of the Bank of Uganda, Michael Atingi Ego, told members of Parliament that the central bank is mandated to regulate monetary policy in pursuit of economic stability for Uganda on behalf of the government.
And then, because the bill is so restrictive in regulation, is likely to drive actors into informality. We are going to have informal channels again coming back. Think like the Hawala systems or the unregulated financial instruments, which is eroding the tax base and undermining the bill's stated goal of transparency.
He further urged the protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026 be harmonized with existing financial legislation, including the Financial Intelligence Act, among others, to avoid legal contradictions and overlapping mandates.
These institutions already are operating effectively under well-established statutory mandates, and reaffirming their primacy would preserve the regulatory coherence and accountability, avoid dual licensing and inspection.
President Yoweri Museveni, after listening to stakeholder concerns, reportedly dismissed some of the criticisms as noise, using the local expression "olwali," in what some observers interpret as a response to mounting pressure. Attorney General Chirowa Kiwanuka and Minister of State for Internal Affairs David Muhoozi appeared on Thursday to introduce formal amendments to the bill. Among the changes is the removal of a clause that classified Ugandans living abroad as foreigners.
Right now, as it is, if you're not registered as an agent of a foreigner, and you go around government agencies trying to change a policy, and it turns out that you are doing it for the benefit of that foreigner, then you commit an offense.
If I register, do I now qualify to engage in these activities? Is that the implication? What ideally is the objective of registration?
It appeared to me that in drafting this bill, there was no consultation, even within government.
Concentrate on the purpose of the law. If I got my money for commercial business, I'm doing my commercial, it will not affect you at all. If you got the money for your family business, family use, it will not affect you at all. But colleagues, if any of us got money from a foreigner and did any of the things that are set out in 2.2, we commit the offense.
The revised provisions now require only agents of foreigners to declare foreign funding and its source to the Minister for Internal Affairs. Ordinary recipients of foreign funding are no longer broadly captured under the same requirement. The amendments also set a ceiling. An agent of a foreigner must not receive more than 400 million shillings within a 12-month period without declaring it to the Minister.
The issue we're dealing with here is that the members felt that the Minister was being given a very wide discretion on how money can come in and how it can. So we are saying, no, you declare it, and if government finds it illicit, then they'll deal with it. But you've declared it.
And we think registration is important for purposes of accountability and transparency, so that if you offend the law, we can catch you. But also, you can declare at registration or at any other time, if I can be precise.
The bill further provides that supervised institutions shall not disburse funds to an agent of a foreigner unless that agent has declared the source of funds and submitted written authorization from the Minister. Additionally, supervised institutions will be required to submit monthly reports to the Minister detailing all funds transferred to agents of foreigners. Such agents must also file periodic returns outlining their operations, the funds received, and how the funds were utilized. However, uncertainty remains over whether the amended bill adequately addresses concerns raised by the central bank and other stakeholders, particularly regarding the extent of ministerial powers in areas touching the monetary policy.
I'm not going to comment anymore on the issue of anti-money laundering. I am very clear in my mind that this has nothing to do with money laundering. Money laundering is dealing with illicit trade, illicit money. This is dealing with even legitimate money being used for wrongful acts.
Parliament is to resume sitting on Tuesday next week with anticipation high that the House may pass the Protection of the Sovereignty Bill 2026. Daniel Mugoya, UBC News.